Hey friends, what's up? So this is an exciting thing. Create React App version 2 is going to be released soon. They published the last, hopefully, beta for version 2, and you can install it like this, and you can also upgrade like this. Yeah, and then there's some things that you have to may change if you're upgrading to version 2 or whatever. But I already ran this, and I've got an app that's running here. And actually, I'm gonna actually have it running. Well, npm run. Actually, what are my options here? Npm run start. Npm start, and that will start up my my little app, the default app for Create React App, because I literally didn't change anything. And yeah, it's starting. It takes a second. Compiled, and now it's beautiful. So it looks a little bit different from the original. I like this better. So yeah, let's go ahead and we'll make a change. You can say sweet, and it'll refresh and everything's nice, right? Okay, cool. So what is this whole thing with Babel macros? So here it mentions Babel macros, and I am the creator, not the idea originator, but I did create Babel plugin macros, which is now included in Create React App version 2, their Babel preset. And so that's what I'm going to show you, is this cool thing that you can do. So I wrote this blog post a while ago, write your own code transform for fun and profit. Yeah, it's basically a mechanism that you can use to install Babel plugins that you use in your source code. But the Babel plugins are written a little bit differently, and they're used differently. So with Create React App, there's no configuration for Babel anywhere. And so you can't like change any of the configuration. You can inject and whatever, and there are different things that can help you like rewire your configuration and stuff. Yeah, there's no way to do that. Okay, sorry, I just got distracted by a quick question. Is that nr command available on npm by default? No, it's not. It is. Yeah, I should always explain what I'm doing. Npm quick run, I think, is the name of the package. And then it's nr will just list out what I have, and then I can nr start or whatever, and it prefixes and stuff. Sorry, I should stop using things that people might find interesting. Okay, just kidding. I'm glad to share that stuff. So let's look at what we can do with Babel plugin macro. So I'm going to npm install as a dev dependency, because this is a build time only thing. Preval.macro, and preval macro is the Babel plugin macros version of Babel plugin preval. And the reason that it's awesome is because you don't actually have to configure it. You just can import it like it's a regular dependency. So we're going to import preval from preval.macro. And then let's see, what should we preval? Let's get a listing of these files. So I'm going to say file list equals preval.require. Actually, no, let's just do it right in line here. So I'm also going to npm install as a dev dependency glob. And then in here, we'll get glob equals require glob. If this is making you throw up in your mouth to see code that's in a string, keep watching. Things will get better. So then we'll go glob sync, and we'll do star dot star. So all the files in this file, files, and module.exports equals files. Okay, cool. And then let's just console log, or here we'll render out that file list. So we'll say file list map file. We'll say div key file contents file. Okay, that should just be an array of files. Ta-da! Nice. It looks like this glob thing is operating from the current working directory. So we can say source and star/star, and poof. Isn't that cool? I think that's pretty rad. So let me explain a couple of the things that are going on here. if you like all of this code that you write for that's like Webpack and stuff, all of it runs at like in the browser. Like this div thing, like it may be transpiled to react.createElement, but it's going to run in the browser, like react.createElement div. But like you can't use glob in the browser. That doesn't work. You can't read file system, any files from the file system in the browser. And so what's happening is this is actually compiled. So let's look at what this is doing. Oh, and if you're wondering, because somebody's going to wonder, I'm using Brave because there's something messed up with my computer and Chrome right now, and it's super annoying. But Brave's a great browser. I just like Chrome for a couple other reasons. But anyway, we're going to open up my sources, and it'll go app.js. And yeah, it's all using source maps. Let's see if we can find the bundle, the actual source. That's CSS. No. Static JS bundle. Okay, so we're looking for source file list. Maybe it's in main chunk. File list. Ta-da! Sweet. So source looks like this. Preval, da 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 da. What the browser actually runs is this. So preval is a special macro, but there are many, many more available. There, like last I looked, there were like 50. If you go to npm.js.com, and when it finally loads, you're gonna search for Babel plugin macros. And actually, let's I think we can do keywords. Here we go. Keyword Babel plugin macros. So you got style.jsx has a macro. Lingui has a macro, so for internationalization. Import all is a cool one that I wrote that allows you to say, okay, import all of these files. And yeah, you provide a glob. CodeGen is basically like preval's sibling, except instead of generating values like we are here, this is an array, and so the value that this file list gets assigned to is an array. Instead of that, it allows you to generate code. So you would say module .exports equals a string of code, and then that string of code is what this will replace. So that's good for generating exports. I do that a fair amount. Yeah, data URI macro, so you can convert files to data URIs. Regexgen macro. Param macro is pretty cool. There's an emotion macro. So if you wanted to use emotion, it doesn't support the CSS prompt, but it supports everything else. Yeah, there's just like tons and tons of macros, and hey, look, it's Swix. He's watching right now. He's got Babel plugin Blade, which has a macro. So yeah, all these macros, it's really cool. So I promised you I'd show you that you don't have to write code in a string. So what we're going to do here, and this is just a preval thing. This doesn't have anything to do with macros necessarily, but let's get file list.js, and I'm going to put this stuff in here, and then we'll say, well, one thing we could do is say module exports require get file list, and save that, and we'll save that, and that. It should work. Boo. Okay, well, a better thing is preval.require. And, oh, that should work. That's weird. Okay, but that's a preval thing anyway. Get file list. That's weird. Ag template function call. Preval? Maybe that? No? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so there's something weird with preval, probably a bug or something. But anyway, let me show you really quick before I wrap this up how to write your own macro, because I think that you'll be interested in that. So here, let me just check questions really quick. It'd be cool if a macro to export all the properties of an object. I'm not sure I understand the question. Maybe elaborate, like my friend Sean is suggesting. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at making our own macro. It's actually sometimes it's kind of hard to think up a non-contrived example for this. I literally just made my own macro the other day for being able to reach into a JSON object and inline values. So it was like import some prop from my macro, whatever it was, something like that. And then I'd say some prop.foo.bar.baz, and that would get replaced with that actual value. Yeah, there are others that I've thought of, but let's just do a contrived example just so you can see that it's, yeah, pretty straightforward. So I'm gonna open up this really quick. Snap. Yeah, this happens sometimes where it's like, no, I don't want to work. So let me copy and paste the code instead. So we're gonna paste that in there, and we'll paste this in there, and then I'll explain what's going on. So what we're looking at here is ASTExplorer.net. It's this awesome, super cool thing that allows you to write custom transforms, and it works for more than just JavaScript. There's like a whole bunch of things. The idea is just for you to be able to explore an AST, and if you're not familiar with that, I've got tons of learning material for you. You can check the Babel plugin macros docs, and I link to a bunch of things. Yeah, so here we can have some code. We can look at what the AST is, and then we can also, depending on what parser you're using and what language you're using, for many of these you can use a transform, and Babel plugin macros is one of those transforms. And so here, in your transform, you have access to this create macro function, which will, in a minute, I'll pull this into the project. You can see how to use that. And you create macro around a function, and that function will get called with an object that has a couple things: references, state, and Babel. So references is anything that is being imported from your macro. Okay, so my dog's name is Gemma, and so that's why this macro is called Gemify. Yeah, so we have a default, and that's what we're using here. So we're getting all the references of default, and that's going to be an array of references because you could have more than one, right? We have 2 references, and for each one of those, we get a path to that reference. So in AST world, that's well, in Babel land, that's just an object that represents that particular node and has references to other nodes around it and some utilities that it can use. And so here we're getting that reference path, which will be Gemma and Gemify, or yeah, sorry, the Gemify identifiers. So this identifier here. And then we get the parent path. So if we look at Gemify here, that's parent path is this call expression. And then we're getting the arguments of that parent path. So you get arguments. And then for those, we pluck off the first argument and get that first argument's node. So here's that first argument. We get the node, which will have access to these properties, and we get the value. And here it says hello world. So that's the string value when we call Gemify. Then we Gemify it by splitting spaces and adding a little dog in there. Then we get the parent path again, which is going to just be the same parent path. It's the function call path, so this whole thing. And we take this gemified string and turn it into a string literal node. So we create a brand new node that that is a string node that is the value, or that gemified value. And then we take that Gemify function call path, so this whole thing, and replace it with our new stringified node, and that's what we end up with. So at a fundamental level, that's like a pretty typical Babel plugin. It's finding nodes, creating new nodes, replacing nodes, yeah, doing a bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and pull this. Like, you can do a lot of your development in AST Explorer. You can't like import other files and stuff, which one day that'd be really cool if we could do that. Import files from NPM or something, but you can get a really long way in AST Explorer, and like you can pop open the developer tools and you can add a console log. So here, if we do console.log reference path, and now we can see these things and we can see, oh cool, and let's look at the prototype. Oh my goodness, look at all those functions we can call. So you can do a lot of really cool things in AST Explorer, and once you feel pretty good about where you're at in AST Explorer, then you can copy that. We'll add a Gemify. How did I spell that? Yeah, Gemify. And we have to end it in JS. It's a JavaScript module, but you also have to, every macro has to end in .macro or /macro. So that is a requirement. And so then here we're going to import create macro from Babel plugin macros, and that will be installed in your project. So you don't need to worry about installing it manually, but you could if you want to. But a create React app, this will be installed. Yeah, and if you have like ESLint plugins or something to verify that you have things installed, then yeah, maybe you want to install it, but it should be fine either way. So yeah, now we've got that. That's all that we need to do for our creating our macro. And then I'm going to import Gemify from gemify.macro. And now I can Gemify, let's Gemify this string. Gemify and save to reload. And we go here and boo. There may be a bug. I mean, it is beta software. So here, actually, let's rmrf node modules cache Babel. Here, let's just delete the whole cache. And then we'll try that again. They do like, I know that they do special things to make sure that your modules that use macros are not cached, but there could be a bug with like when you add a macro and then remove it, or I don't know, something to look into. Okay. No, unexpected token import. Oh, this is important. So this module will not be transpiled. I've thought about making it so that we can, and maybe I will if we can figure out a good way to do that. But yeah, you can't use ES modules in there. And yeah, boo. See, sometimes the cache, like, so there's work being done to make Babel more capable of marking certain files as part of the cache or an important part of the cache. And so developing a macro is not always the most awesome experience. Eventually, hopefully it will be a better experience. But yeah, sometimes you have to delete the cache. And maybe one day we can make it not have to do that. But here we go. It's gemified. Hooray! Look at that cute little dog. So that's what you have to do. So like if it's a macro published to NPM, create React app, actually, when you use a macro in a file, it says, okay, this file is basically never cached. And that way it can ensure that it always recompiles if you're making changes to other files. Like for example, I'm pretty sure that if I were to change this to another dog here, that should, yeah, it'll recompile. I just had to hit the save key in here and it recompiled. So it's not included in the cache. As soon as you include .macro or /macro anywhere in the source file, then it's not included in the cache. That's a little bit of a hack right now, mostly because we can't communicate properly to Webpack and Babel that this file actually depends on the macro, which is kind of frustrating. But eventually that will hopefully improve. So sometimes you have to like delete the cache or do some weird things to make sure that it works. But it's like totally worth it for the power that you can get. Like preval and CodeGen should often mostly be all that you need to do like one-off things. So definitely look into those. Like I could do this Gemify thing with preval and CodeGen. But it is like to do this Gemify thing with preval or CodeGen, it's not as nice of an API. And so I could like make my own custom macro if I'm using this a lot. And then it becomes a lot easier. So yeah, making custom macros is pretty great. Okay, so gotta check out this thing from Pedro. When using Hyperscript helpers, it creates an object with properties that are functions that create HTML elements. I still don't understand the question. But anyway, I hope that was sort of interesting and helpful. Definitely use Babel plugin macros. It's very, very fun, very cool. And use AST Explorer. It's great. Go check out this blog post. It is Write Your Own Code Transform for Fun and Profit. Maybe I'll add a link to that in I'll link all this stuff actually. Yeah, I'm not going to commit this to GitHub. You can go like watch it and type it yourself. It's really not that much extra stuff. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me just check really quick for comments. So Sean has a comment. He's done a lot of macro stuff. He said, I've been developing my 600-line macro entirely inside AST Explorer, and now you can tell me I could have done it inside Create React App all along. Well, okay. So it's only since like yesterday that what's his name? This nice timer fellow, Joe. He implemented the feature where a file will not be cached if it includes a macro, and that significantly improves the experience of developing a macro in Create React App. Before, you had to like always delete the cache. It was super annoying. So it's slightly improved now, so you can try developing it in a Create React App environment now. It would be awesome if we could find another like more dedicated environment for creating macros. Yeah, AST Explorer is really nice because you can actually look at the AST and stuff. Yeah, and you can even like debugger and stuff like that. So that I kind of prefer sticking in AST Explorer for as long as I can. Okay, another question from Bryce. What's an example of a real use case of Babel macros? So perhaps you missed it earlier, but all of these things are real world use cases for macros, and there are like 50 of them. There will probably be more in the coming days, but like here, I'll show you a legit use case. So npm install we'll save this. Emotion and React emotion. And I'm going to get rid of this Gemma macro thing because we don't need that. Who needs that? Goodness. Kind of contrived, isn't it? Okay. So with emotion installed, it's like my favorite. And styled components is getting this. They're working on a macro as well. But yeah, okay. So now we have styled. I think it's styled from emotion or React emotion. And I can say styled div, or we'll say const my box, the component, so capital. We'll say width is 100, height is 100, color or background color is red. Okay, then we'll just render my box right here. And yeah, okay, that's what I thought. It's a default export. There we go. Cool. I got my box. Nice. So let's take a look at what this looks like in our developer tools really quick. Man, I don't have React or Chrome, and so I don't have my React Dev tools, which is gonna kind of be a drag here because I can't get the display name. Here, we'll do console log my box display name. Okay, so styled div, not very helpful. And then this class name is like, what is that? So like when you're in your React Dev tools, styled div is what you're gonna see. That's not all that super great helpful. It'd be nice if it said my box, right? So that's why React Emotion has a Babel plugin so that you can, it can automatically set the display name properly for you. In addition to adding labels and hoisting this, because like this can be, that's a static thing, so it can be hoisted. Like there's a whole bunch of optimizations that you can get from Emotion. So what I'm gonna do is, I think actually, they might have it, yeah, right there, macro, ta-da. And I save that and refresh here. And here, maybe we need to, this should be working. Okay, let me just check this really quick. We'll go to, yeah, it is the macro, my box. There we go. Okay, well, I can show you a more specific thing here. So before the macro, this is not possible because they don't ship every possible HTML element. So normally you have to do it in quotes like this, but with the macro, you don't have to do it in quotes like that because they can transpile that away for you. So that's one thing. I'm not sure why it's not fixing the display name. I feel like it should, but in any case, it is transpiling it for us, and it's also adding that target class name, which I'm not sure what that does, but before we didn't have this class name, and now we do. And I think there's something to, I actually don't know what this extra class name's for. Can't remember. But anyway, so that's a practical example, is now we can just use it like this, and we don't have to worry about Emotion doesn't have to ship every HTML element like a big list like Glamorous does, and I think Styled Components does. But then they can also transpile, you can use that API with the macro. That was kind of like fell flat a little bit, but there are totally some awesome use cases for macros. And it's like, in this example, it's just as easy as adding /macro every time you import this thing, which I think is like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I feel like if this isn't working, it's either a bug or it's a feature that needs to happen, because it should automatically set the display name as well. Okay, cool. Let me just check. Okay, cool. That's it. That was fun. Thank you everybody for watching, and go use macros. They're great. And I will see you all later. Goodbye.